Dad's car a lot. We got by with a little more with Dad's car.
Phil Vanderpool.
Yeah,
Where's he from?
Torrington. His dad's name was Van, or his
Diabetic?
nickname was Van Vanderpool.
Diabetic?
Phil was very bad diabetic.
He was my college roommate for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And he was one of my best friends in high school, and his mom made me read the book, my diabetic child, she wrote, so that I knew, you know, how to take care of him if something happened. And my mom was a nurse, and so he drank a lot of beer too. So
Yeah, Phil, he never slowed down in college. He was Greetings. I'm Dave Throgmorton, the Director of the Carbon County Higher Education Center. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for our next political forum. Tonight we have people who would like to serve on our city council. You know, there's a lot of national issues that we tend to get pretty worked up about, and we tend to think that those national issues are going to have a huge impact on our daily lives. But the simple fact of the matter is, when it really comes down to it, it is our local politicians our neighbors that we put into places like city council, county commissioner, even to a certain extent our state representatives. But on city council, they make decisions about where we can park our trailers. They make decisions about our dogs, free and loose, running in the cemetery. They make decisions, oftentimes, about what kinds of police officers we're going to have in our community. In other words, the city council is making decisions that are actually having a huge impact on all of our daily lives. So this is a very important political forum. I'm delighted that we have 5 of our candidates here with us tonight, and I'm really delighted that you have joined us tonight. If you have questions during the course of the evening, give us a call. I think the number is probably on your screen. We will get to as many questions as we possibly can. Introduce our panelists real quickly. We have Chris Weisenberg here, Patrick Gonzalez, Steve Nicholson, Mike Luan, and Terry Wycombe. Terry and Mike vying for Ward 1, Steve and Daryl Garner, who is not here this evening, for Ward 2, and Patrick and Christopher for Ward 3. We're going to give each of the candidates 3 minutes to introduce themselves. After that, we will ask them a series of questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question, and then we will give the other candidates a minute to rebut should they decide that they want to do so. And once again, let me remind you, if you have questions, don't be shy. This is not the time to be shy. Don't be shy. Give us a call. We'll get to as many of them as we can. We have about 90 minutes. And by the time these guys leave this evening, we want them staggering out that door, and we're counting on you to help us with that. So, Jennifer, go over here and I'll start asking questions, and then we'll actually start with you, Chris, for the first 3-minute introduction, and then we'll just move our way down the line. Okay?
Hello, and first off, I want to thank everyone for joining Facebook Live, and everyone of the candidates for also joining in here. Also, Mr. Throgmorton and staff for putting this forum on, so the constituents of Rawlins can get to know the candidates and let them know and understand the stances, the choices they have. So, hi, I'm Chris Weisenberg. I've resided in Rawlins, Wyoming for 28 years. I live at 821 Neiman Street in Ward 3. I've lived there for almost 9 years. So I'm running for City Council Ward 3. I've always had a desire to serve our community in a positive way, and I believe this is a way to give back to our community in that positive aspect. So I'd like to be a catalyst in playing a role for the betterment and the progression of not only Ward 3, but for Rawlins as a whole. I believe I could bring to the table new ideas for being a younger individual trying to serve our community. I believe I can bring great ideas for new age and more so to bring our community into a better future for our youth and further generations coming. So I'd be entering this position with no axe to grind, right? Meaning I have nothing on a plate to say, this is what I want done, this is how it should be done. I want to be a voice for our community. And being that voice of our community, I want to work with an open door policy and an open phone policy, meaning I would be willing to give my number. You have my address, stop by, knock on the door, and I will be getting back with people. I want to be that voice and represent our ward for individuals to know that I'm backing them and not just my personal agenda. I've been to many workshop meetings and council meetings to know and try and stay up on current events that involve our community. I've served on a couple local boards for baseball for the youth and stuff. I have 2 children in Rawlins, and I'd like to continue that and raise them in a community that we have here. So the main duty of this office, I believe, is just to serve our community and to serve our citizens of Ward 3 and being that voice. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Patrick?
Hi, I'm Patrick Gonzalez, born and raised in Rawlins. I did leave for a brief period of time and then I have been back for the last 15 years, a resident of Ward 3. I've been a resident of Ward 3 since I was 12 years old. As far as my desire and goal, obviously, is to be a member of City Council. I think I come with a high level of leadership, being in several organizations, both in Fortune 500, locally, etc., that I've had leadership positions. I'm also a former employee of the City of Rawlins, so I understand the inner workings of how the city functions. I certainly understand City Council, how that works. I have attended more City Council meetings than I care to count, but it is always a very good experience to understand exactly how and why some decisions are made. Some of my goals and objectives are to be obviously more transparent as a member of City Council, a high level of accountability that needs to take place. And I also think that one of the big areas of concern is the adherence to municipal code and making sure that that book is updated accordingly so that those code makes sense in today's environment. So I think that is one of the key areas of what needs to happen as a member of City Council. I look forward to hearing from all of the candidates this evening and hopefully learning a little bit more of what they think is important to our great community. One of the things I do want to say is regardless if I'm elected or not, I will continue to work for the City of Rawlins. That's always been a main goal of mine, and those of you who know me know that I am actively engaged and involved in a lot of things that deal with the city. So I'm just looking forward to representing the City of Rawlins and Ward 3.
Thank you. Steve?
Hello everyone, I'm Steve Nicholson. I currently live here in Rawlins, born and raised, been here 52 years. My family has lived here long before that. Just had our seventh grandchild. Makes the 5th generation of Nicholsons living in Rawlins, so pretty excited for that. So Rawlins is my home. I served on the City Council for 8 years, 2 years as Vice Mayor and 2 years as Mayor, and I've enjoyed it. I think I've brought a lot to the council, a lot to the community. I enjoy volunteering my time in just about every organization I can get involved in. With that, I've served on the Board of Adjustments for 8 years. I've served on the Board of Carbon County Commissioners of Community of GOG, for 4 years. And I currently belong to Rotary here in Rawlins. So I'm not afraid of being involved in things. I love to be part of things. I feel that's the only way that we can make Rawlins better, is people getting out there and getting involved and trying to make Rawlins a better place. So that's my main goal. Some of the things that I'd like to say is I don't have an agenda for running again for council. I just enjoy it. I want to do what's right for the people. There's a fine line you have to balance there between the citizens of Rawlins and the city itself. You have to find the balance there. Can't always make people happy, but we do our best to do it. With that, I'd just like to say I appreciate your vote coming up in the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Mike?
Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. For those of you that may not know about me, I'm from here. My family and my relatives have lived in Ward 1 since way before I was born. And I am an alum of Pershing Elementary, St. Joseph's Catholic School, and I will always be a Rawlins outlaw. As a local businessman and entrepreneur and restaurateur, perhaps the residents of Ward 1 may recognize me. Others may know me through my service in the Rawlins Search and Rescue, or the state level of Knights of Columbus, the Gladiator Boxing Club, or the Boys and Girls Club. And you may have participated in our now 19th annual free Thanksgiving dinner, or wrap presents for our community, toy drive, or volunteer with my other community-inspired projects. That's who I am. But where do I stand? I will be a supporter of the city's employees. I will start by holding the city government to a higher standard and to the practice of promotion of transparency in all business that concerns the Rawlins citizens. We deserve to know about these changes and the decisions that affect our lives, which have not always been so as in the past. And it's about time, because Rawlins deserves that. I will support and promote our recreation programs for our citizens that enhance education and learning, as well as support our teachers and educators that facilitate those programs. I'm a firm believer in a program that teaches our kids to become more successful and to keep them safe in our community. As a medic and a team leader for the Rawlins Search and Rescue Team, I know firsthand how important it is to properly assist our first responders, and I will make sure that we continue to properly support them in ensuring budgetarily that we continue to fund the training and the resources the police and the firefighters and emergency responders need to serve this community. I will support law enforcement and fire programs, especially that keep kids safe. And although some candidates may have claimed to support law enforcement, that may be far from the truth. I will continue to stand up and support law enforcement, fire, emergency services, and if I may quote, John Locke writes in the year 1689, "For wherever law ends, tyranny begins." Now, at a time when nationally our economy was shut down and a magic wand was waved to see how we could do business, citizens could go to a dispensary and they could purchase marijuana, and citizens could go and get an abortion, but we couldn't go to church. I realize these are not council issues and I need to stay in my lane. But if you want to know who I am and where I stand, that would sum it up for you. And if you vote for me, you can trust that you will have a councilman that will not be afraid to speak up. And I'm involved, eager, and engaged in the subjects that affect the residents of Ward 1 in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Terry?
Hi, my name is Terry Wycombe, and almost everybody in town knows me, but that's because I moved here in 1978. I moved here as my own free choice. I wasn't trapped here or anything like that. This is a place I love to be. Through the years, my wife and I have owned several businesses, Candy Mountain, Carbon Copy, Sunnyside Car Wash, and so forth. In owning those businesses, we have participated with many different organizations and groups of people and helped support our community every way we can through that business. I also have been the chairman of COG, Council of Governments. I've worked with the legislature. I'm a graduate of Leadership Wyoming. I believe in order to be a city councilman of Rawlins, you also have to participate in statewide issues, know who to call when you don't have the answers, know who to reach out to, and I have that experience where I do. I'm retired, and I have the time to do this job and to do it with the same dedication I've always taken public service seriously. I was a county commissioner for 8 years. 6 of those years I was the chairman. We worked on a lot of issues that are very similar to the city, and then we worked on a lot of issues that are not. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but I can tell you that I will take whatever time is necessary to research, read, educate myself about what's going on so that I can make better, more informed decisions for the city of Rawlins. As far as the first responders, I married one. My wife is a former police officer, and I believe that in Rawlins we should have the very best first responders possible. I want to see the best fire department, I want to see the best police department, and support those people like we always have. As far as our city workers go, they're really a bunch of hardworking folks that need support and stability, and I look forward to being part of that team. I know how to be a team member, and I will work my tail off to see that Rawlins is a better place. We can do a little better, and that's why I'm running for city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate it. First question I'm going to aim at Patrick, moving on down the line. let's just get it out of the way right from the very beginning.
I already know.
Please
I know.
tell us your thoughts on a city statute that would forbid residents from parking their trailers on the street.
Oh, boy. Thank you, Dave. Well, actually, that is not a very cut and dry, there's not a cut and dry answer, I should say that. There's a little more complexity to this whole issue. A couple of weeks ago, somebody posted this very thing on social media, and of course threw my name out there, and I wish they wouldn't have done that because that is not my stance. First of all, I'm not for or against that ordinance, the way it's currently written. And until the city council makes a determination of how they're going to approach this, it really does not make any sense. One thing I will tell you, we've heard the issue, it's been brought up, it's a power play, it's about money. I don't think it's about any of those things, because I've heard the word safety thrown out quite a bit. Unfortunately, if it's going to be about safety, if they determine and it passes that people need to remove their trailers, campers, boats, some of their vehicles, and they want to make it about safety, then it's the city's responsibility to ensure that, for example, when it snows, that they need to plow those streets, even if those trailers are not there. So if it is about safety, the city council has to be serious about that and has to make a concerted effort to make sure that those streets are clean. So if it is about safety, that's what has to happen. But as far as the trailers currently now, like I said, I'm not for or against that ordinance as it stands. And I haven't seen or read anything to suggest that they've come up with a plan that's viable, that's workable, and it's a win-win for all parties. So that's my take on that today.
Thank you. Steve, same question. Tell us your thoughts on the city statute that would forbid residents from parking their trailers on the streets.
Okay, so as anybody that's followed me over my 8 years, I've never been in agreement with this parking issue. I'm not for it. I do believe that we have some areas in town that have some issues that we need to address. How we go about that, I don't feel we have a plan yet that attacks it the best way for the community. The current one that's being proposed right now, I think, is too cookie cutter. It impacts the entire community, which I don't think is fair. I don't have the answer, but I'm not in favor of the current ordinance right now that we're working on. I hope that over the next 2 meetings, maybe we can come up with something that's better fitting. But if we don't, I don't plan on supporting this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike?
All right, so for the people that I have visited with, because it is an issue that has affected many people, and as someone that has boats and snowmobiles and those sorts of things, one of the questions was, why are we talking about this again? I thought this was already resolved, and now we have to bring it up and drag it through again and try to come up with a solution. And in agreement, I don't think the proposal is the best answer. I absolutely do not. I think there's a better answer out there. I'm not sure that I know what it is. But the ordinance that states that there is a parking, the ordinance states that there needs to be 20 feet from the curb unless that vehicle is over 6 feet high, and then of course it needs to be 40 feet. And so I think that's the issue, because some streets definitely need it, and there's some streets that are wide that don't need it. So I think it needs to be area specific. But it is a frustration issue. I don't know that it's a camper issue, but it is a frustration issue for these people, and the argument, well, if they can afford this, they can afford rental of that unit, and I don't think that's fair either. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and I don't think that the ordinance as presented is the answer, and I think that the council as it stands has their hands full, and if you elect me, that we'll definitely give it 110% and value the input of those people that especially that it affects. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry, what are your thoughts on the city statute that would forbid residents from parking their trailers on the street?
One of the problems with that ordinance is, in some areas, it cures a problem. In some areas, it doesn't cure anything because it isn't a problem. It has to do with the width of the streets and traffic flow and such like that. But I will say that I am a proponent of snow removal. Last year, we had ruts in front of our house that are 18 inches deep. I have pictures of them, 18-inch deep ice ruts, which would tear your car to shreds if you tried to drive up and down it. We're lucky enough to have a four-wheel drive pickup, so it didn't hinder us in any way, but some of our neighbors are older folks, and they couldn't even drive their car down the street if there was a medical emergency. So, as well as taking care of the snow removal, the parking of the campers does have a factor. However, whether they park there or not should be just part of a larger plan, as Patrick has said. This has been brought up many, many times, and I think part of the problem why people can't come to agreement is because some places it doesn't cause a problem, and some places it does. So I think we need to kind of roll up our sleeves and look at where is this a problem at, and possibly some of the narrower streets, make them one-way streets or whatever. But just to say you can't park your camper in front of your place or whatever for safety reasons, and then don't do anything about the safety issues is, I don't think the way to go. I think it's something to think about, but I don't think it's the finished product.
Thank you, Terry. Chris, what are your thoughts on a city statute that would forbid residents from parking trailers in front of their homes?
First and foremost, number one priority of our citizens of the community is safety. And the trailer ordinance that's proposed now, I believe, does not solve the problems. It's a very gray ordinance, and I've heard we have to start somewhere. Thing is, we need to start with enforcement of ordinances that's on the books already, that would help these situations, you know. The other thing that needs to happen is research and development, right? We have to research this, and I know that the current council and past councils have done some research for this. But when I say research and development, we need to research where the community's gonna be able to park these trailers, because it's not only an RV trailer, it's any trailer in this ordinance that's being proposed. That means you could have a car hauler trailer that's 3 foot off the ground, not blocking any kind of view, and it's the same width as a vehicle, that's gonna propose no more safety issue than a vehicle parked on the streets. We have to look after the community developing this and know that it's gonna create problems. We're gonna have neighbors and individuals parking trailers and campers on their lawns, you know, and the degrading value of their property is gonna degrade the values of others, you know. We need to look at options of also the Ward 3 is the tightest streets, obviously, and maybe look at some of those streets as one-way streets that they have in the past. But with that being said, you know, we can't have an ordinance that's gray as this is as such. You know, we need to do more research on this. And I'm not saying that something does not need to be done, you know, but I also want the constituents of Ward 3 to know that I want to be their voice in this matter.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody like a minute to rebut something that's been said? Mike?
Okay, so yeah, just a couple things that I think I just neglected to say, but the first one is, once again, this is definitely a frustration issue for the residents of all the wards that it affects. And also, it doesn't have to affect you if you don't have a vehicle, but driving, it does affect. Now, the data shows that not a large amount of accidents are due to these vehicles being in the way. The data shows that. The data shows that any accidents that have happened are due to driver inability and attention. That is what's important. And the vehicles involved, this is a complaint-driven issue. It's not necessarily a proactive-driven issue. It's officers respond when there is a complaint. And so they don't just go around ticketing places. They respond according to that.
Steve?
I'd like to add a little something about with snow removal that I think a lot of people misunderstand. If this ordinance does pass, it will not change the amount of snow removal that the city does. We can still only do the streets that we're doing. So even if these are gone, those streets still will not get snowplowed. And then just some information for last year, there were 5 accidents involving snowplows and parked vehicles. 3 of them were with vehicles and 2 of them were with parked trailers. So the trailers being parked were not as big an issue as the vehicles parked on the street. Thank you.
Patrick?
Mr. Lujan and Mr. Weisenberg brought up 2 points, the 20 feet and the 40 feet. Well, this does not apply to trailers, boats, and campers. It also applies to cars and trucks. In Ward 3, there's probably, I bet I've counted probably close to 300 violations of this. So it's already a problem that's not being addressed that has nothing to do with trailers. Also, the idea that people are going to park their campers, boats, and trailers on their lawns, it already happens today. So this idea that this municipal code is going to all of a sudden make people want to park on their grass and devalue and other people's homes, it happens already. So this idea that this is going to be a big issue, it's being brought up because there are people that are concerned. Is it a safety issue? Yes. Is it a complaint? Yes. All these things are true, but until it's addressed and it's taking account both the win-win for all parties involved, it's going to continue to be a mess.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to touch base on the complaint driven a little bit also. I don't believe that's the fairest way to enforce an ordinance, because it's not gonna matter, meaning, when I say that, meaning if I'm driving, I see one individual's vehicle or trailer parked, it's gonna be complaint driven. It's gonna be a 72-hour ordinance where they have 72 hours from the time that the complaint was given. So in that aspect things, we don't even have enough staff on hand with the police department, and I believe we're in the middle of hiring a code enforcing officer at the point, so we don't even have the staff to enforce all this ordinance at this point. And also, the knowledge of, people need to understand that if this is passed, that it goes into effect immediately unless the council, puts a provision in there for next year. So individuals need to understand that also.
Okay, thank you. Good.
I would just like to say a couple of things. I've been going to the last few city council meetings, and there were a lot of points brought up at the last council meeting that probably not a lot of people thought about. I know I didn't. I learned a lot by going to these, and that's kind of what you do to do your due diligence to learn about what's going on. I think that there are a lot of ordinances right now that would help address that length of time, distance, such like that maybe we should start with enforcing the rules that we already have and then go from there. As far as not having anybody to enforce them, enforce these rules, we got them. Well, you can drive down the street and see a few of them every place you go. So the fact that they might not be able to do it right then doesn't mean they don't have time to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. Steve, this one we start with you, moving on down the line. Small towns thrive when small businesses thrive. What plans do you have to support existing small businesses and to encourage new startups?
Well, the first thing is I just encourage everybody to shop and spend at home. I know we don't always have the items that we need here, but sometimes we can make do with what is offered in Rawlins, and staying locally and buying the items in the local stores helps those small businesses, the clothing stores, the grocery stores, the hardware stores. They need our support, especially with the times that we've currently gone through, more than ever. But I know a lot of people, Rawlins is a community where on the weekends a lot of people love to travel. They like to go out of town, just to get out of town, not necessarily to go shopping, but while they're out of town they tend to do it. And I just wish that maybe next time they do that they'd think about, well, maybe when I get home I'll just buy the stuff at home if I can. Things to offer small businesses, we're not at a financial spot to where we can offer much for small businesses. You know, we don't have many incentivized options for them, so that's kind of hard. All I can say is, you know, if somebody wants to start a business, start it, and let's get together as a community and do everything we can to support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mike, same question. Small towns thrive when small businesses thrive. What plans do you have to support existing small businesses and to encourage startups?
Well, 90% of all restaurants fail within the first 6 months. That's a national statistic. And you can see that here. You can see it statewide. And as a business owner and a restaurant guy for 30 plus years, I guess that makes me old, but we have to look to other towns and see what they're doing, to look to how they're thriving. Same way with the DDA, how they would look to other downtowns to see what they're doing, and to use that model to mold your own. Now, in my business, I have to give 150% just so I feel like I can be competitive, because I want to be, because I want to offer a great product, I want to offer and exceed customer expectations, and I want to do the best I can, because I want those people to shop here, to be here, to live here and believe here. And the largest economically driven funding that is available right now is leakage. And that leakage is the people that leave Rawlins and go somewhere else to shop. Whether they go to Cabela's, or they go to another restaurant, or they go to another box store. You know, let's support Mark downtown. Let's support the businesses that really have done their diligence and really made an effort to do that. Now, and if the city doesn't have incentives for new businesses coming in, I think they should work with the EDC and the DDA and the Main Street and the city liaison and work with the Chamber of Commerce and work with all Visitors Council. All these organizations need to have a roundtable and work together and to come up with some things that they can offer to businesses that want to come in and open up shop. Thanks.
Thank you. Terry, what do you think? What plans do you have to support existing small businesses and encourage new startups?
Just the fact that city government, county government, state government has no business being in business. But what they do have a tremendous influence on those businesses. One of the things that I would like to see happen is our landfill is now closed. We pay some of the highest landfill rates in the entire state of Wyoming, probably the union. I think we could, as a city, we need to really look at our landfill, our water, our sewer rates and such like that to make it an attractive place. There's two ways to grow a garden. You can go out and pull on the corn to make it grow, or give it a safe, controlled environment. And in our town, we have a lot of regulations. When a new business comes to town, a lot of times, and too often, there's this Sears catalog thrown in front of them and say, fill this out and come back when you got it filled out and blah, blah, blah. No, we want to help you get through it. And so I think a little bit more effort in helping new businesses get situated, find out, you know, when they come here, if they need a backhoe, where to get it from, such like that. Our town has a little bit of control over that, but with the EDC and some of these other things can be filled in. But I'm telling you, with the overhead, you know, the trash, the sewer, the water, it would make a huge difference if we were competitive or lower than another place they're looking at. It's a choice to move here. We're in competition with other towns. We can compete. And I'll give you proof. We have a lot of really good business people in this town, and they're tough people and they've done it. But if we can help them that way, and there's not a whole lot more a city government can do for them.
Okay. Thank you. Chris, what plans do you have to support existing small businesses and to encourage startups?
Well, first off, I think we need to find some kind of support with incentives to allow those businesses to come to the community. We do live in a very boom and bust economy that we need to stabilize with other industrial type work that gets us out of that phase. And I think that in itself, if we could offer those incentives, some kind of incentives, we would be a more versatile community. You know, also I think we need to put it out there that people or individuals or companies that's would like to expand out into Rawlins, we have a DDA that they need to utilize the Rainbow Teton, building, the entrepreneurship that they offer there. We've recently, I believe it's Moraz Delivery, started their business out of that building. So I think offering those opportunities to our community and to individuals or businesses wanting to come to the community or start up, I think that is a start. Giving them the information and being not being withholding information. One prime example I can think of is, I believe it was Sheridan offered some incentives for a manufacturer, a gun manufacturer. I believe Weatherby is who it was, right? That would have been a great opportunity for Rawlins to step up as a whole and say, look, we have a lot of amenities, close to our community that would fit into that aspect of their business, So we need to step up and be competitive with either, deregulation of what it takes or not, being so strict on, you have to do this to develop that before you can bring your business to Rawlins.
Okay. Thank you. Patrick, what ideas do you have on this subject?
Well, I already personally support local business. I think Terry hit the nail on the head. The city should not be in the business of being in business. That's why you have a Chamber of Commerce. That's why you have an EDC. That's why you have a DDA. The city contributes a great deal of money to all three of those organizations, and that's their role and responsibility. It's not to throw parties. It's to help develop the economy, to help develop commerce, to develop those businesses. Now, the city's responsibility, they do have to work with that when it comes to building codes, construction, all those types of things. We've heard horror stories of individuals that have gone to the city, and it's been a very difficult challenge for some of them because of the codes, variances, things of that nature. So you have to look at every aspect of the business and how it all functions, but that's the responsibility of other entities, not necessarily the city. I do think it's important to support local business. That's why I do it. But as far as the city as an entity, that's why you have DDA. That's why you have economic development. That's why you have the Chamber of Commerce. It's those organizations that are responsible for helping develop local business. And I think that's where you have to be very careful, because it's a slippery slope, and that's not one. People are always talking about how the city's too involved in certain aspects. I can only hear the complaints that would happen if the city started doing that.
Anybody need an extra minute? Okay, thank you. Mike, we're on to you for starters. What is your opinion, and this one came from a listener earlier today. What is your opinion on term limits for city council members? Do you think our state needs to find a way to remove an elected official, since currently we have no way of removing an elected official at the city level?
Well, I think term limits, and I know exactly kind of where that's going to, and I know how on a national level it's affecting us right now. But I also believe that a person can be in a place too long and fail to continue to make differences. Doesn't mean that his or her presence hasn't made an indelible mark. It doesn't mean that they've made change. But I think a lot of times you get into a place in our life, in our work, in our marriage, in our school, whatever it is, that we just are stuck. And I think you have to have new ideas, and you have to have new places for people to be, and those ideas need to come forth, and every one of these candidates has that. Every one of them has an idea of how they think they can bring about change and how they can make a difference. And so absolutely, I think if you have someone in there that's been in there too long, and no disrespect to any of our councilmen or people in office that have been in there a long time, but I think there's always time for change, for improvement, and really to make a difference. And I think you need to tap into those people, whether they're young or older, to really stand up and to say, this is what I believe, this is what I think we should do. So it's not an age thing, it's a time and place kind of thing for me. And as far as pulling someone out of an office, I don't think that's a fair assessment. I don't think, because we don't like what they do or where they stand or what they've done, that we need to pull them out. But I think if a person in office is not effective, I think that should be addressed, but taking them out of office, I don't think is the answer for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Terry?
There's two sides to term limits. I do agree that there should be term limits. I'll put that out there. I was a county commissioner for 8 years, and to be honest with you, 2 terms is probably long enough. I didn't leave on my own accord, but looking back on it, 2 terms are probably long enough. The way that the council is staggered, there would never be a time when there'd be probably a time when they would be all new. So you would have the historical perspective as well as the new ideas coming in. So I do believe in term limits, not for any particular reason other than this is our government, and therefore a few people shouldn't run it. It's run by the people that participate, and the more that participate, the better off it's gonna be. As far as removing people from office, I believe there's already laws about if they, commit a felony or such like that, that they can be removed. If you just want to remove somebody because you don't like them or you don't agree with them or something like that, the removal process is called an election. Barring any wrongdoing, and if there is wrongdoing, well then I think there is a way to remove those people. Not because you disagree with them, but because they've done something seriously wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Chris?
Yes, for term limits, I do believe term limits are necessary, as Terry touched on, the way city council is set up. You have 3 elected, and then 4 elected also the next set of elections. So I believe you would have the historical side of things and be able to have that senior inspiration to come forward. But I believe term limits would allow for growth of our community and allow for involvement of our citizens. More people would be willing to step up. I believe, and I believe it also allows a different perspective to come forward, a younger youth generation stepping forward to bring new ideas, which would allow, like I said, the growth of our community. I mean, when I talk about growth, I don't talk about growth as in Cheyenne, Casper size, but Rawlins has a lot of potential, a lot of great ideas that could be fed to the table. And I think a lot of individuals are scared to bring them forward to be shot down. And so I think it would allow that to happen. We'd have more involvement from the community. As far as removal of an elected official, I stand with them also. I don't believe you should just be able to start a petition to remove someone from office just because you did not agree with them. Otherwise, we'd have that happening all the time, and there would never be anything solved. But if you have committed an act of crime that warrants that, there's other things. If you've missed so many meetings, that you're required, and you're not representing the community as you've taken the responsibility to, I believe that should be taken into consideration also, So just because you don't like someone, don't mean you should remove them from a position.
Thank you. Patrick?
Term limits, I think, are necessary. Obviously, if you've been in an office for an extended period of time, you get a lot of complaints of complacency. Certainly, the chatter has been, over the last several years, the idea of corruption. And I think when you do have term limits, and the Wyoming state statute is pretty clear that you cannot remove somebody from office. Literally, you cannot do it. And I think there has to be some type of change that allows that to happen. People should have the right to recall an individual if that individual is ineffective in that position as a member of city council. I don't know about you, but if you've looked on the wall on the east wall, you walk into the council chambers, and you look at the number of people that have been on that city council that are the same people in 6 photos across the board. I'm not saying those people were bad people, but at a certain time, you have to question the effectiveness of what they have done as a community. There's a reason why Rawlins has stagnated. There's a reason why Rawlins has not grown and developed like all the other communities on the I-80 corridor. And it's not because these people are bad, it's just because when you have the same people doing the same thing at given times, there is no fresh blood, there is no new idea, there is no cause to look at opportunity. They're set in their ways, and it does create a problem. There's a vacuum there. So yes, term limits I think are a necessity. To remove somebody from office, it's not gonna happen unless you get state statute changed, and I doubt anybody's gonna take the time to do that.
Thank you. Steve?
So I do believe that there should be term limits. I don't know what that would look like, but you know, the other gentleman touched on it. You know, if you had the same group of people that were in those seats for years after year after year, it doesn't give the younger people in the community a chance to get on there and promote new ideas and help get Rawlins going in a different direction. So I think it is important to have term limits, and I have nothing against anybody that's been on there. Some people have been on the council a very long time, but it's very important to have new people on there. New ideas are important. It helps grow Rawlins in the right direction. Stagnant. Pat was right. You know, Rawlins is so much like other towns on I-80, but yet we don't grow like other towns on I-80. What is the true answer? What was the problem? Don't know. If we knew the problem, for sure we could fix it. But Rawlins hasn't grown like other communities. So change is very necessary. And then I think the other part of the question is to remove somebody from office. Like Pat says, there's a law stating that you can't. You know, if it's a criminal situation, criminal proceedings could take place and remove them. Other than that, that's just kind of the way it stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody like a minute on that one?
Sure.
Okay, Mike?
So we talked about a good old boy system, and I think that is a legitimate and viable issue that has come across a lot of people's minds, especially on Facebook. You read about that. Has it happened in the past? Absolutely. Are any of these candidates in this room going to be part of that? Absolutely not. But we all know each other, and we're all friends with each other, but we're not, hey, how's it going? What are you doing today? You know, that kind of friend. But we all know each other, and we have that respect. Short-term limits prevent self-serving interests. And as far as each one of us being our own person, I'm proud to say that I get along with people for 5 minutes at a time. So we don't get along long enough to be part of that good old boy system. We are definitely, each one of us, our own individual person. So, and I respect each one of them for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Oh, sorry.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on, I believe Patrick had mentioned complacency, you know, and that is the act of doing something over and over again without thought, you know. And I do believe that is what's happening with our community now. And as Steve said, we need change, you know. And also, I have nothing against the council that's sitting currently, you know. They've done good work in the past. I believe just fresh ideas are necessary and needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to say and reiterate, similarly, I have nothing personally against anybody that sits on the city council, even if they've been there for 30 or 40 years. That's not the issue. I think it lends itself to the idea of complacency, and that is what the community thinks. That is a perception that comes from that. These are all good people. I know them, some of them personally. I have known them for many, many years. It's not that they are not good people. It's just that sometimes when you've been there too long, your thought process is not going to go along the lines of something that might be new and different. You're going to stick with that old thought process, and that's why I think it's necessary.
Thank you. Terry? Would you tell us 3 issues you would like to work on as a member of City Council?
I feel very strongly that we need to do something about the utilities charged by the city. When I think of us paying the price we do for the landfill, for our water and sewer, and I compare it to other communities of like size, we're not competitive in that area. I would like to see us look at that. When I ask, when is this landfill gonna be paid for? I've asked, I bet 30 times and I always get the same answer, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Because we take in a different amount every month. Well, yeah, but it's within a certain range. So historically, how long will it take to pay that off so that we can get rid of this temporary high price? And I never get the answer. But if I ask the same person, how long do you have to pay for your car? It's 46 months. And so I don't think it's a priority to get those prices down. The business people, this town's not very business friendly, it really isn't. When you hear conversations like, we cannot charge the people more money for our water, but we have to charge more to our businesses, that just tells me there's a complete lack of understanding of how businesses work. As a business, if my overhead goes up 10%, because you raised my water, who's paying for that? The people you just said didn't have money to pay for it. So we have to understand that. The next thing is, I would like to see a snow removal plan on a school bus routes at least. I live on a school bus route, and when you look out there and the school bus is stuck in the middle of the street, that didn't happen. And then probably the third thing would be to work more on getting them stores downtown filled. We have a lot of empty stores downtown. And I'll stop there, thank you.
Thank you. Chris, can you tell us 3 issues you would like to work on as a member of City Council?
First and foremost, I want everybody to understand I want to be the voice of our community. I would like to promote the transparency from council to the community. That's one big issue I would like to be a voice for. I'm not afraid to talk to people, come out and know what their feelings are. It's not about what I feel 100%, it's about what our community feels. The next thing is to promote the growth and beautification of our city. People talk about how poor of a city we live in with beautifying it and stuff, but I have some ideas that I'd like to bring to the table for that. Different areas of town that we could work on for that also, that would allow the growth of businesses and just residents in a whole. I believe that's the issues I would bring forward to the table.
Thank you. Patrick?
Terry touched on one of them briefly, utilities, but it goes beyond that. I think flow control is the big one. You've got 2 haulers, and there's still this perception that one is being treated differently than the others. And I think that idea, the flow control, it goes about the cost, paying off the landfill. Those questions have never been answered. The other is obviously fiscal accountability. We have seen way too many things that have transpired over the last several years, prior to even before Steve came on board. A lot of the decisions that are being made with the taxpayer dollars are very questionable. And the last one, I think, is important, I think it's necessary, and I think it is putting everybody on the same playing field, and that's business licensing for all businesses. Right now, I think the only ones that are currently required are restaurants, construction, and there might be another one. When I worked for the city, I was tasked with that, putting together a proposal for business licensing, how it was going to work, the fee structure, everything. It would have paid for itself, and then it got rejected simply because they thought it would be too cumbersome on local businesses. But when you're putting everybody on the same playing field and everybody has to adhere to the same rules and regulations, you're making your businesses adhere to certain standards so that the business that is down the street knows that it has to comply with the same things as its competitor. And that's how you get the development of your communities, because everybody's playing by the same rules. And sometimes that is a perception that is given today, that not all businesses are given the same opportunities. You know, Terry just alluded to it. We're not real business friendly here. And that business licensing will ensure that everybody is playing by the same rules.
Okay, thank you. Steve, what three issues would you like to work on as a member of City Council?
Well, one of them I've been working on, and some of the gentlemen here have already touched bases on it, but it's transparency. I think that's very important. Rawlins has not been very transparent in the city government over the years, and I believe over the last 8 years that I've been there, we're getting better. Things have still got to come a long ways yet, and I think we're getting there. That's very important for the citizens to feel that they can trust what the city says and believe in what they say. And transparency is the key to that. And that builds a better working relationship with the community and the city if we can get that completely developed. We have a long ways to go yet, but I think we're going to get there. The next one is a street maintenance program. As you guys have seen over the last 2-3 years, we've been doing a lot of street overlays and trying to improve on them. We have the 6 penny tax money coming up that's going to help rebuild a couple of our major streets. But Rawlins never set up any type of a street maintenance plan for years to see what's going to happen to our streets, you know, the next year. We're finally at a point where we're making strides on that, and I just hope that we can put a package together that stays in effect for the life of the city. It's important to the citizens. You all like to drive on streets without hitting potholes. I know we still have many potholes to fill, but compared to where we're at 3 years ago, I think we've come a long ways. So I think working on that, trying to get that completely developed where it stays in effect forever is important. The third thing is the working environment within the city employees. You know, it's been real rough when you go to different departments and city employees just weren't happy. Things just weren't working like the nice, well-greased cog that it should be. And we've come a long ways in that in the last 4 years. And I think with the hiring of our new city manager, the HR position, that we're finally getting that where it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, first off, to correlate with everybody, I think we all have great ideas. But fiscal responsibility and universal transparency. Transparency has been something that I've been thinking about for quite a while when I decided to run, because it wasn't there. Because we want to ensure that meeting the city's mission of honest and an effective system, I think that is where that transparency comes from. And it's no disrespect to our sitting mayor or anybody in that respect, but I feel like the people have been very flustered because a lot of things have gone on that they don't know about and that they're unhappy about. And I think that's something that needs to be fixed. I think we need to prioritize the spending on capital projects, like from years of increased sales tax, like the wind farm. Utilizing that and taking that money correctly, it's gonna fix those potholes. It's gonna fix these streets because they're really in bad shape. Let's not pretend like we have great streets, because we don't, and they need work. And the third thing that's really important to me is the better support of our law enforcement and our EMS, and our retention, not just of them, but all of our city employees, especially our long-term employees. And Mayor, you hit it on the head. There is a lot of employees in this city that are unhappy, and they shouldn't be. And they should be able to go to work knowing that we all have stresses at our job, but that they're manageable, that they're respected, and they're appreciated, and that we want them to be there, and they're not just a warm body. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody like a minute? Terry?
The one thing that I see the problem with the city is the people don't trust the government. The people don't trust the city. They've been told one thing, another thing happens. There's been a lot of surprises over the last few years. And again, I'm not really looking down my nose at anybody or shaming anybody, but one of the things that would make our that trust easier to have is the workshops that are held downstairs before the meetings. You go down these stairs and you walk up to a wooden door you cannot see through. You open the door and it's not inviting. I'm not intimidated by it, but a lot of people are. I feel the intimidation. Then they go upstairs. One meeting was, we're gonna have this project at Ryan and McMicken. Then when they go upstairs, they heard all about it, but when it's up in public where people expect to see that, then it is, there's a project at Ryan and McMicken, you heard all about it downstairs, is there any questions? No, we're ready to vote. That means that decision was made downstairs when that workshop should have been held upstairs and very public.
Thank you. Anybody else need a minute? Steve?
I'd like to just touch bases on that, Terry. You know, the workshop downstairs is open to the public. I mean, anybody can walk in a door like they do in any building. We have it down there, otherwise the council meeting's upstairs. We've been there sometimes till midnight. If we do the workshop in conjunction up there, it could last even longer. Where no decisions are made downstairs, and they're not. I mean, you can make up your own mind of how you're gonna vote on something. People do it all the time when they're reading the agenda and thinking something, but anybody can go. And I welcome anybody. If it helps to leave the doors open so they don't come up to the wooden door, we can surely do that, but the entire community is there. The newspaper's there, the Bigfoot 99 is there. I mean, nothing is in secret.
Maybe one shot, sorry. Anybody else for a minute? You're gonna have another crack at it though, because, Chris, this question just came in from somebody out in internet land. And so it says, many votes are made without discussion in a city council meeting and probably in a work session. Is it the responsibility of the council person to give their stance as to why they are voting in favor of or against a topic, especially a topic of discussion?
I believe, well, that's difficult, right? I wholeheartedly stand with Terry about the intimidation factor walking downstairs of City Hall. You do open a wooden door that, and when you walk in, it's not the most inviting feeling around, you know. And I don't believe a work session should be for decisions to be made. I believe it should be an open discussion. And you know, that I believe that is the case in a lot of aspect of things. It is open to the public, I do understand that, but no, you shouldn't, I believe you should have to give some kind of, you know, rhyme or reason, I guess, for a yay or nay. I mean, I know that in the workshop, you know, why you believe or why you don't believe or disagree. But as far as a council meeting, I believe a yay or nay is appropriate at that time.
Okay. You want to hear the question again, Patrick?
Could you repeat that question?
Many votes are made without discussion in a city council meeting and possibly in a work session. Is it the responsibility of a council person to give their stance as to why they are voting in favor of or against a topic, especially a topic of discussion?
Well, since we're talking about transparency, yes. We have had several instances of, we'll bring up the Dirty Boys Wyoming waste issue. That was a perfect example of what was perceived that the decision was made behind closed doors. I think it was actually an executive session, which that brings a whole nother level. But when you are in these meetings, yes, I think it's important. Why the city has gone to the online voting and nobody knows who voted for what. All you know is there were 5 yeas, 2 nays, or it was unanimous. I think that's one of the issues of why the transparency thing continues to come up. If you don't know what your representative is voting and why they're voting, it lends some credence to the fact that they're not being transparent, and some of the things and the decisions that are being made seem to be just being pushed through, ramrodded, without knowing why. And I think that has been a huge problem with the city of Rawlins, as Steve alluded to, and I applaud the mayor for that, is that they're making every concerted effort to be more transparent. But I can tell you, previous administrations, there was no trust because of the fact that they felt that there was no transparency and things were not being handled in a fashion the way they should have been in an actual open forum in a city council meeting. So I do think it's necessary, I think it's important, and I would hope that at some point in time, the city gets back to, you ask each individual, what did you vote on? And if anybody has a question, they should be able to ask, why are you voting that way? That's transparency.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Could you repeat that question again?
I'd be glad to. Many votes are made without discussion in a city council meeting and probably in a work session. Is it the responsibility of a council person to give their stance as to why they are voting in favor of or against a topic, especially a topic of discussion?
Okay. So I can speak for myself. I don't make any votes in work session. You hear what is presented, and you have in your mind probably the direction that you're gonna go, but no votes are made in the workshop. It's all done up on the floor. And with the online voting and so forth, it has changed dynamics a little bit, but if I do recall that when Sherry or Marta would read the votes, it would be 4 against, or 4 in favor and 3 against, and then she would say the names of the people that voted against it. So the public is aware who voted against something. And when a topic is brought up on the council floor, when we open, after the motion is made, it's open for discussion. And at that point, anybody in the room can ask a question in regards to that. So if there's something that somebody would like to know a little more information on, that they weren't in a workshop on or just don't know, they're more than welcome to ask a question during that time and get the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, if I am fortunate and blessed enough to be elected, I would expect the people that voted for me and the people in this community to be able to say, Mike, why did you vote for this? Or why didn't you vote for this? I would expect to hear that, and I would want to hear that. We are elected by the people. We're answerable to them. And we're answerable regarding our decision, and we need to have the character to stand behind it and stand behind what we believe. You heard of the things that I stand for, and that's who my character is, and that's what I want. There should be discussion on every motion. So I understand that the constituents are saying, we don't know who's voting, we don't know what the discussion is. I think there's an answer to that. I think the workshops need to be televised. I talked to a friend of mine and he thought the same thing. Televise those so the people can hear. That way, that just like this is streamed, they can go back and they can listen to it. They don't have to listen to it live, but they can listen to it at a later date. I think that's important because I want my constituents to know why I decided what I did, why I'm voting. My goal with that transparency is to be able to do that, to be able to discuss that, and I understand the concerns with the online voting, and I think that it needs to be continued to be put out there, who voted yes, who voted nay. And I think that that's something that we all could agree to, that we need to stand up for who we are in our decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Terry?
Again, public trust is what's at risk here. And the more stuff that's done in the basement, you can say the public's invited if you want, but if you want to be really uncomfortable, go to a workshop. They don't really allow a lot of public input at the workshop. And it goes back to this very simple thing, and that is, if you and I are given different information, you and I will probably come to different conclusions. So when some of the information is presented downstairs, but it's not open, it is open to the public if you're tough enough to go down there, but very few people, how many people go down there? Almost nobody, unless they have a particular situation. So I don't care if I'm there till 2 in the morning, I'll do the job. I want people to know what's going on. The public meetings laws are very, they're not vague at all. Not only is it your responsibility as an elected official to tell the people what your decision is, but it is very important, and the public meetings laws address this. Not only do they have the right to know it's sausage. They need to know how that was made. So all these different things, the information that doesn't flow through, the perfect example, I've been going to these city council meetings for a while, and the one was this project at Ryan and McMicken. You all heard about it downstairs. If nobody has any questions, let's vote. When and where was that decision made? How is the public that's watching the televised version supposed to know anything other than they're probably gonna dig a hole at McMicken Street or whatever? The other thing about that is, if you know nothing about it and they're voting, what question would you ask? How could you ask an intelligent question when you have nothing in the background? I'm told to stop.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, I appreciate that. Would anybody like a minute on that one? Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to touch base on the online voting process. I believe that was put in place to kind of speed the voting process up. And it is announced. I do know for a fact it is announced. Online voting's closed, passed with 3 yeas, 2 nays. Councilman Martinez, nothing against him, voted nay. Councilman Nicholson voted nay. It is announced there, so the public does have an opportunity to know that. I want to thank Mike Lujan for bringing up, the workshops, being televised. That would create a lot of open forum, stuff for the public to be more involved. I believe people would understand why council is voting in favor or against, different things, because then they have an idea of what was said instead of not.
Thank you. Anybody else like a minute? Steve?
I'd just like to touch on what Terry said there. I guess I can understand how somebody can be nervous about going downstairs. I'm not, and I guess I never even looked at it that way. But if it's an issue, it's an easy issue to fix. That's something I'm definitely gonna look into. It was brought up here tonight. If that is a problem in the community, that people aren't coming to work sessions because they're nervous about coming, I see no problem that we can't change that. If that's an easy fix to help get more people there. And hopefully get some more information out there, because I don't wanna keep nothing from anybody. The workshop kind of speeds the process. So you go through, the whole thing of the scope of things, and when you get upstairs, the people who are voting heard the whole scope of things, and they can ask a couple more questions and make a vote. But that's kind of where we're at.
Terry?
I would just like to point out, how many times do people walk up to the podium in a city council meeting and the first thing they say is, "I'm very nervous." You're not intimidated by it. I'm not really intimidated by it, but a lot of people are, and the fact that you're willing to work on that and maybe combine the 2 meetings like a lot of other towns do, or whatever you gotta do, but the fact that workshop's held downstairs and then you come up and no discussion and vote, that really does aid in the mistrust. And I really, whether I'm lucky enough to be elected or not, I'd like to see that changed. It would help. People would understand more. They would have more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
So let's talk about accountability. So in these work sessions, that's where the accountability starts for the council members that we voted for. We need to accept the part that, yes, it is a place to be nervous. It is a place for not someone that is a gifted public speaker, but it is a place where we put our heart, where we make our decisions, where we're held accountable. That's where we explain how we came about with our decision. And I have no doubt that the mayor tomorrow is gonna say, we need to try to change this. So no matter where we're at, we need to make it welcome for those people. I don't know, have some cookies, I don't know.
I know somebody who can make them.
Whatever. But we need to make it a place where people feel welcome, where they're not nervous, like Terry says, where they feel like they belong and they're part of the system. Thank you.
Okay, this one came from outside, and this is for you, Patrick. What role do nonprofits serve in filling public service gaps? And what more can the city do to help them during the current budget crisis?
You just had to ask me that one.
Sorry. It just came in. It's hot off the wires.
Nonprofits play a huge role in our community, and the city has done a very good job of engaging nonprofits. They've also done a very good job of providing funding for some of those nonprofits so that they can fill some of those gaps. I, being involved in a nonprofit, and several nonprofits actually, and having to go before the board, our city council, to seek funding, I think they have tried to be fair and equitable when they have distributed funding to some of those ancillary programs and groups. So they do a very tremendous job in that, and I have no complaints with how the city has done that. Although a few years ago, I did have to reprimand the city council for the distribution because it did have an impact on two nonprofits that deal with crisis situations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I just kind of I directed them towards the idea that you have to be focused on the things that are important, that take care of your community. And if you're not going to do that, when those situations become bigger issues, you're going to have bigger problems. But the city has done a tremendous job with that, and I have no complaints about how the city has handled the nonprofits and provided them with funding. So I applaud them for that.
Thank you, Patrick. Steve?
Well, the nonprofits are very important. There's the counseling center, there's the pet partners. There's so many of them that go on that we try to give funds to. I think last year, and don't quote me on the exact amount, but I think it was just a shade under $200,000 that we gave out to the nonprofits. It's not much, when you consider the whole scheme of things, but it is quite a little bit, and I think what we give do help these nonprofits quite a little bit. I think it makes a difference in their operating. So, I hope we're able to continue that, which I know we will. Maybe someday we can have more funds to be able to give more to it. The role that they play, like I said, is very important in the community. And like I said, they're nonprofit. They don't have the means of making money like a normal business to survive and keep the doors open. So they rely on the city, the county. They get a fair amount from the county as well. I think there's a few of them that get some state funds. So they got to reach out every direction to get the money. So it's very important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Okay. Well, nonprofits are huge in Rawlins. They're huge nationwide. The nonprofits every year look to the city to assist monetarily to help support them. I've approached the council on several occasions representing different nonprofits for that. We also, so I'm familiar with that process, and I've also served with Patrick on the board, and so he and I are familiar together with how that operates and how that works. But nationwide, participation is down. Participation of members is down. It's hard to get people involved, whether it's for the kids or for the elderly or whatever it is. It's hard to get people motivated to do that. So consequently, donations are down. And nonprofits looking to the city, that's a tough go, because they've seen their donations come to less than a half in some instances, and that's hard. So it's difficult for the nonprofit organizations to be able to manage that, but that's something that they have to do to keep their doors open. They have to do that to keep those kids fed. But I also think that there is a need for more nonprofit in this town related to the elderly, to child care, substance abuse, mental illness, and to really to help serve for people that are falling through the cracks. And I think that there's definitely a need for that, and I think that that's something that I could lend a hand in, and I could recruit resources to make that happen, and I think that we need to really work towards that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Terry?
Nonprofits and those type of boards are exactly that. They're not doing it for profit. It's nonprofit. These folks work because they're passionate about some issue or another. They're totally invaluable. There is no other source for some of these services. If it wasn't for them, then we would have a problem. Their very existence sometimes depends upon the funding from the city. I think the city has done a very good job in that, and I can tell you myself, all I can tell you is this: I'm very committed to continuing supporting the nonprofits and the volunteers that work for them. These are people that are, like I said, they're just passionate about what they do, and you give me somebody that's paid to do it or somebody that's passionate about doing it, give me the person that's passionate about doing it, and we'll get the job done, and that's what they do all the time, and I so appreciate their service, and I'll support them 100% as a councilman.
Thank you. Chris, what role do the nonprofits serve in filling public service gaps, and what more can the city do to help them during the current budget crisis?
Nonprofits are very viable to our community. They offer a lot of great services that the city does not even offer. You know, I truly believe we support them as a city. The council supports them through necessary means that are affordable through the budget. At that point in time, you know, I would continue to support nonprofits also. The one thing though that citizens need to understand is we do have a budget to work off of, and you know that the funding is not always there. I believe it's been there for several years and it's been distributed equally, as stated before, and I'd be proud to continue on with that.
Okay, good, thank you. Anybody like a minute? Okay, the questions are rolling in. Oh, Mike?
Okay, yeah, just real quick, I would encourage everybody out there that's listening or streaming this to get involved with these nonprofits. You know, you have St. Vincent de Paul, and their median age is 60 to 70-year-old little old ladies that are lifting these heavy boxes of canned goods and things like that. And the best way is to get that sweat equity and to get involved and take an hour out of your week to go help them out and to help other organizations, whether it's a booster club or pet partners, really, because that's where the help is needed right now. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we've got questions rolling in.
Yay.
We're bearing down on 90 minutes. If you guys have a few more minutes left in you, we can get a couple of these questions. Otherwise, this will be the last question. But it looks to me like there's some folks out there that'd like to hear from you. What do you think?
Sure.
Got an extra 5?
Sure.
Maybe
Absolutely.
6 minutes.
Let's do it. This comes from somebody out there, and it is, who are we doing now? We are starting with Steve.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on your responsibilities regarding following legal advice as a city council person?
So with legal advice, the way I look at it is, if legal counsel gives me direction, I'm going to follow it. I don't even know how to answer some of the thoughts there, but it's just so important with city government, city council, that we don't run amok. You know, we do a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of decisions that we can make that can get us in legal trouble in a hurry. So I think following legal counsel is very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Mike?
think I think if I understand the question correctly, I think it's a no-brainer. At least for me it is, because if we're given legal direction and we're given legal understanding of something, we don't have a choice. We have one way, and that's the way. And I think we have that responsibility to be accountable to the people that voted for us, the people that didn't vote for us. You're important too. And we have to answer to them, and we have to do things right. And if things haven't been done on the up and up and they haven't been correct, shame on them, because they should have been. And everybody should have been upset that did not happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Terry?
Several times in the past, I've watched when legal counsel would give them advice, or they didn't like it and they'd go out and hire a different lawyer or whatever. The fact of the matter is, if if you're not gonna listen to your legal advisor, your city attorney, then you're just not gonna listen to them, go get a different city attorney that you do trust and wanna listen to. I have a lot of faith in Amy Bach, and I think she does a tremendous job. But several times in the past, I've seen them take her advice and do something else. I can tell you this, when everything goes bad and you're standing there in court, I want the person that's defending me to be somebody that I listened to. It's just that's just the way it is. If you need to listen to your attorney. That doesn't always happen here, and almost every time that I've witnessed it, that it didn't happen that way, ended up with some bad results. So absolutely, listen to your attorney, or get a different one. And in our case, I think we have a really good one, personally.
Thank you. Chris? Question again. What are your thoughts on your responsibilities as a city council person regarding following legal advice?
Legal advice is very necessary to follow. They are an attorney and went to school for a reason. You know, I believe it's a saving grace for our council and our city. It saves lawsuits, potential lawsuits, from individuals or businesses that, you know, I believe that's the only way to follow it is to go with that. And as Mr. Wycombe had touched on, you know, if you are constantly having to get legal advice from another attorney or an outside source, then you should be trusting the person that you're hired, and if you don't trust them, then change needs to be made. And I'm not saying that Ms. Bach has not done a great job, and I believe she does do a decent job or a good job at what she does. You know, it's just council needs to totally follow that and have faith.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Patrick?
Obviously, it's a necessary evil to follow the advice of your legal counsel. I think we could probably get into the weeds here, and I think I could say something that would probably upset a lot of people. I don't necessarily find, or I don't believe a lot of this was city council not adhering to the direction of the city attorney. That responsibility fell on the city manager, who did not listen to the advice of the city attorney and then communicated some miscommunication or miscommunicated information back to the city council. So I think that's part of it, but by and large, Amy Bach is a tremendous attorney, and I think she has provided guidance and direction to the city council that's been completely invaluable. And I think as a city council member, you do have to follow that, because what you're trying to do as a member of city council too is minimize the risk to the community, to the organization, to you as a elected official. So if you're not willing to listen to your attorney, it's not about just replacing the attorney. That's when we get into some of these other discussions about it's you as the city councilman that probably needs to be replaced.
Thank you. Any, Mr. White would like a minute.
I just have one quick thing to say, and that is, if you as a council person don't necessarily agree with the advice you're being given, ask some questions. Why do you feel like you feel? What makes you say that? What are the alternatives? Such like that. And I think by the time it's done, you're not going to be an attorney, but you might understand your attorney a little more. And I think sometimes just more communication would relieve the urge to not follow the attorney's advice. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, with the attorney, you know, when the attorney gives you her advice or their advice, they do that with the thought that whatever advice they gave you, they can defend you on it. And that's what's important. You know, you have the law over here, and then you got the law over here, and you got the attorney here in the middle, hopefully. But the advice she gives you, she can defend you on it. And that's what's important, because if something ever goes to litigation, getting sued, anything, you want to make sure that that advice your attorney gave you, she can defend you on that action.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Need a minute on that one? Okay. We will make this next one the last question, and then we'll give you each just a minute to wrap up and say what you want to say at the end. So I'll ask this last question, and this is more of a process question for each and every one of you, but this is to you, Mike, and then going around. How do you identify a problem, and what process do you use to bring forth corrective action?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, for me, a problem is when it doesn't feel right in my heart. When I know that this isn't right, and you just feel it and you know it. The second way is to ask a lot of questions, and I'm a question asker. I want to know the smallest of details. And the same thing with my business. I need to know all the details so I can teach my people, so I can help them learn, so I can help them engage. And for me to be able to ask questions about the process, to ask questions about the motion, to ask questions about the intent of the motion, that's how I get about. That's how I make change come about. And for me to be able to translate that, once again, it's about the responsibility, and it's about being able to be answerable to the people and to bring about that change. Thank you.
Terry, how do you go about identifying a problem, and what process do you take to bring forth some sort of corrective action?
Problems tend to announce themselves through fellow citizens, your gut feeling, as Mike said. But when you see something that isn't right, that people aren't liking it, people approach you with things that you might have talked about that have unintended consequences and stuff like that. Those type of problems, that's when you start paying attention, do research, do your due diligence, find out more about it, explain it. If you can't explain it, change it. Find out why you can't explain it. Basically research and then react to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Could you repeat that?
I can. How do you, and this is kind of a process question for your own thought, how you work things through. How do you identify a problem, and what process do you use to bring forth some kind of corrective action?
I believe, as Terry had stated, problems identify themselves. You know, we live in a time of social media. It's a huge thing. A lot of people post on social media through our community. We have a city website, you know, or a city deal for social media, and people could post on there. So the problems will continually arise, you know, or to be identified through the citizens of Rawlins. Now the process of that is, you know, I've said it earlier, is research and development. You know, you research what they are talking about, or what you have seen as a problem or identified. You research that. You research, you know, and develop a plan. Put forth a plan that would work for our community and the individuals within the community. When you research that, you research who it affects. You know, what's the safety measures that it's gonna bring forth. You identify bullet points, you know, through that, and then you do your development and how to solve that, and problem solving skills that you know that and then you could enter a motion or bring that to a workshop, you know, trying to dissolve that.
Thank you. Patrick?
Well, in my current position, a lot of the problems that do come to me are very black and white. As a city council member, I'm assuming that a lot of these problems are very numerous shades of gray. But the way I tackle that is, when I identify that there is a problem, I take it upon myself to do as much due diligence as I can to educate myself on the situation, on the problem, and then I go through a very arduous task of trying to figure out solutions. That is one of the things that I am very solution driven. I have to be in my current position. That's my whole career. I've been tasked with with the same types of things. You find the problems and then give us a solution. So the way my process is it's about educating myself on it, finding the best possible solution to fix the problem, and hopefully as it presents itself, and you've done enough due diligence and you've created the solution, when you enact that, then you've solved all the issues. But it is not an easy thing, and not everybody can do it. That's the hard part, is being able to stay focused enough to address that problem, go through all the steps, find the solution, and hopefully resolve it.
Thank you.
So the first part of the question is identifying a problem. The first thing, as being a council person, you need to not go through walking around with your blinders on. You need to be open, you need to notice things that are going on in your ward, in the city. If there's a problem, identify it, see if it's something you and the council can address, or talk to the proper department head. Let them know what you've seen, what you've heard, and try to support them in the decision or the actions it takes to fix that problem. Ignoring a problem just lets the problem get bigger. It doesn't go away. So stay on top of it, identify it, support whoever needs to fix it. That'd be my solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody need a minute on that one?
I'd like to.
Patrick first, then Chris.
I think one of the big things as a member of city council that it's important to remember is you have hopefully qualified people in place to help find and fix these problems. That's why we have a city manager. That is why we have department heads. You filter all that down through the leadership, and hopefully they address that as you've identified it, and then they correct the problem. But I think one of the biggest factors here is you have people in place, utilize them, and let them do their jobs.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to touch base a little bit on discussing with department heads. I believe one thing that individuals need to understand is, as a council, you have 3 employees. You have a city manager, a city attorney, and a city judge that you're directly over. I believe if, as Steve had stated, nothing against that at all, but I believe, you follow a chain of commands. If you touch base with your city manager and let him distribute through to the department heads or the proper people at that point in time. But it to work as a whole is a big the way to solve that problem.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Well, we started the evening over at Chris's side, but it's just the way the luck of the draw works out. Have about 90 seconds to finish us off, Terry, and then we'll work around the room.
I'm glad everybody that came here today, or that tuned in today, has listened, and I appreciate that, because you're asked to choose who do you want to help lead the city over the next 4 years. That's what we're here for. I have the experience, I have the dedication, I've demonstrated that in the past, I have the knowledge. I don't have all the answers, but I know people that probably do. I'm a team player. The Rawlins can be a much better place if we play as a team player, instead of having some of the craziness that went on in the past few years. Let's work together, and I can be a very good team member with my resources, and I hope that the years of being in business and being an elected official has proven that I will be dedicated and work towards it. My phone is open to anybody. Everybody knows me, and I'd like to hear from y'all what you think and what you'd like to do. And don't forget to vote for me on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Chris?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank everyone for joining through the Facebook Live, and also you and your staff for putting this forum on. Every one of us that's here has brought up valid points and good solutions, I believe, that could benefit the city. I just want to say I'm proud to offer a choice for our Ward 3. You know, I do believe no one should run unopposed, and that's why I accepted the write-in position. And then I want to be 100% committed to bettering our community, and I believe I can bring some assets for that.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is thank you, Dave, and your staff for, again, putting on a fantastic forum, moderating it in such a fashion that everybody has an opportunity to speak and share their thoughts and ideas. One of the only things I'm going to say is you have a lot of great candidates here. Whether I'm elected or not is irrelevant, because I'm going to continue to be actively engaged and involved in my community. I have been doing this for some time now as far as getting involved. You all know me, I write letters to the editor, and I'm not worried about offending or what people may or may not think. When I see something that I think needs to be corrected, I will voice my opinion on that. And as a city council member, I will do the same thing. But again, I'm not overly concerned if I'm elected or not. It's about taking pride in my community and continue to serve this community in any way, shape that I can. So that's my goal. That's how I look at it. I'm still going to be here fighting for Rawlins and doing what's hopefully best for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Steve?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank all the candidates that came tonight, that took time out of their busy schedule and came here to allow the public to ask some questions. Sometimes they're hard questions, sometimes they're easy questions, but the important part is that everybody came here tonight willing to answer those questions, and thank you guys for coming. Secondly, I'd like to thank you guys for putting this on. I think this is helpful in the community. I've heard a lot of good things from you guys doing this years past to current, so continue to do it, please. Thirdly, I'd like to thank the citizens of Rawlins for electing me in the last time, and I asked for their vote again on November 3rd. I'm here for the people of Rawlins. I'm not a career politician. I'm here to do what's best for the citizens and try to keep the balance of the scales balanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Mike?
Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. Truly, it's heartwarming and such a blessing just to be able to be here and to know that people vote for you is very humbling. Regardless of where you stand on the COVID-19 pandemic, it's affected everybody. And I feel like as a citizen, the city needs to talk to us. And the city needs to show that they support us, not just as a business, but that they support us as constituents, to be part of us, so we can make through it together, so we can be something together. Because our success, it depends on the support that we give and the support that we get. If you vote for me, I promise you that all those things that I stand for and that I profess to you will be true, and they'll be honest. In Isaiah, he says, who shall I send? Who will go for us? And Isaiah says, well, here I am, send me. And that's for each one of our first responders and each one of our police department and each one of us here that is going forth to be sent to represent. Don't forget, if you want to talk to me, my number is 321 Mike. Give me a call. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you all very much.
Yay, good job.
Thank you.
This is for my students. Once again, I'm Dave Throgmorton, and I want to thank you all for joining us for this forum. And I want to thank all you guys. You did a great job tonight. This was very informative, this was rich, and I really deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much. I would like to remind you that the Carbon County Higher Education Center is also on the ballot. It is on the ballot under Carbon County School District Number 1 continuing tax. This is a $500,000 levy that supports the Carbon County Higher Education Center. You know what we do here Thank you very much for joining us. Please vote on November 3rd.